Welcome back to Kelly's Good Vibrations. This is going to be another quickie. I wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about shared trauma bonding in relationships. It's very difficult to have a healthy relationship on unstable foundations. We're attracted to people with similar wounds who may not know how to find a way out of their shades and their shadows, but we settle simply because they're in the same boat as we are. We can relate to what they've been through. However, confusing shared trauma for compatibility is one of the most toxic relationship patterns that we can follow. We all deal with our emotional issues in unique ways. On a deep level, we're drawn to people we can bond with over similar or shared trauma. However, to remain connected due to that, without a deep understanding of it, and without working on healing our damage and cultivating other bonding aspects of our relationships, we can really be stepping onto a wrought path that will only cause us more trauma. So in a union where two people have shared trauma bonding, out of the two individuals, one person will heal faster or will attempt to move forward faster than the other. And that's when drifts mostly start to occur. People discover that they don't have enough reasons to remain connected with each other anymore. And with this realization, one will move forward and one will try to keep things the same because the same emotion has been a source of comfort for too long. And without the awareness of the changing emotionality between them, conflicts and friction begin, and over a period of time, their relationship becomes toxic. So trauma is difficult to deal with. And sometimes it's impossible for intimate relationships to sail through all the turmoil because it takes a lot of emotional maturity, acceptance of one another, and constant mindfulness toward well-being. Sometimes the partners are the reason for the trauma because they just add on to the old wounds that we've been carrying around unhealed. And hence the intensity deepens in each other's presence. And when the couple gets to the point where they begin to trigger each other in the present based upon past trauma, well then, that's pretty much all she wrote. And while it's natural to be attracted to someone sharing similar difficulties, if the partners have other healthy reasons to be connected, the bond can remain healthy, but we need to be aware when emotions are overwhelming. In any bond, the consent of two is what makes it work, and if one is feeling like a victim or full of power, the consent element has been compromised. So it's important to acknowledge the difference between caring and being a victim. When something feels alarming, questioning it is beneficial. We all need people who understand our sorrows and allow us to heal. But don't let that become a premise for a healthy relationship. The core of a healthy relationship is two emotionally fit individuals, or at least two people committed to being emotionally healthy with each other. So shared pain brings people together, and that's very normal. It's often called social glue. Trauma behaves like a binding agent in social settings, forging connections between survivors known as trauma bonds. So, Stockholm Syndrome is a term used to describe the distorted relationship between kidnappers and their victims turned defenders. It demonstrates one of these bonds in extreme form, but how it can take shape over time. So while confusing to us on the outside, Stockholm Syndrome simply creates a mental escape for victims by reconfiguring the brain to find comfort in its captivity. Another common bond is the kind we see among people in military service. So this trauma bond is known as unit cohesion. It highlights the effectiveness of shared trauma in high-stress situations. Likewise, people dealing with trauma in their everyday lives are often drawn together because of seeing and understanding the trauma patterns in each other. But let's not confuse our ability to hurt the same with our ability to love the same. There's no doubt that we detect companionship in the experiences we share with others, even more so when those experiences are negative ones. But I'm going to say it again. Let's not confuse our ability to hurt the same with our capacity to love the same. Anywhere we see increase in PTSD, we see people utilizing unhealthy strategies to cope with it. Emotional numbness, or the avoidance of emotional experience, is a common logical response to repeated trauma. And the more trauma you're exposed to, the less it feels like trauma, and your brain prefers it that way. But as people become collectively numb to external stimuli, it takes more for them to feel meaning. Their interactions require a lot more intensity to feel authentic. This explains why children exposed to trauma during their young years engage in thrill-seeking and risky behaviors at a much higher rate than their peers. And unfortunately, adult victims are no different. These cravings for heightened stimuli not only trickle into our daily decision-making, but also affect our romantic pairings. Where others might view someone's unaddressed trauma as a red flag, a similarly traumatized person would see the potential risk as being worth the camaraderie that comes with it. So to a person enduring ongoing trauma, someone who can help them cope and survive is far more important in the moment than someone who can help them heal or heal with them. So it's the trauma in our histories that make us more susceptible to trauma bonding. And it's the resulting numbness that makes us seek out extreme feelings and extreme situations. So when two people come together with these things in common, they become both agents of pain and agents of coping for one another. So creating between them a vicious cycle of re-victimization that ensures that neither of them advance beyond the pain that binds them together. So when we're victims, our desire to pair with other victims is neither rational nor irrational, but it is a naturally occurring phenomenon we can't afford to ignore. Part of the healing process is recognizing that although our behavior is instinctual and it's a response to trauma, we have the power to recognize their roots and to correct them. We are not slaves to our pain. Our pain does not choose for us. Our pain does not control us. And while our pain may bring us together, it doesn't have to keep us in unhealthy relationships that do not serve any purpose. And if health and longevity are the goals of our relationships, we have to address the ideologies that may keep us from attaining them. So we can work to end the cycle of trauma bonding as soon as we recognize we're in it. And there shouldn't be any question as to whether or not we are. Yes, we can heal. We can heal the relationships that we're in. Or we can move on. We choose, not our pain and not our fear. So I hope that was helpful. As always, if you have any questions or any concerns, please contact me and I'll be happy to share any resources that I have with you to help in your healing journey. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I wish you light, and I wish you love.